Nkosi my season.
Amen.
I'm going to speak on the topic a branded author. A branded author. I'm a branding coach, so most of the time when I give business talks, branding is fused there. So I felt because I'm going to speak on the issue of your pala in what. Amen. And angeke ngishumayele ke basana. Ngishumayele ngashumayela uphume namaphelo bongazuthi akhona. So namhlanje angeke ngishumayele. I'm just going to stick to the purpose of today so that you get to launch this wonderful book. Good work, by the way. I saw the cover of the book. It's beautiful. Thank you very much. You've done it. A branded author. Conceptualizing, writing, and publishing a book is not an easy thing. You go through so many transformational episodes. You discover things about yourself and how your mind works that you never thought about before. Writing is a gift of God. God Himself is the initiator of the art of writing. Writing is the only activity that makes words to be visible. Because words are spirits. Words cannot be seen. But it is until somebody writes them that you can be able to know what they were thinking. Words cannot be seen, yet their impact can be felt. However, when words are written, they not only benefit those they were written for at first, but they can also be preserved for generations to come. So Pastor Neo has decided to take a leap of faith and write down words that were ringing in his head, as writing is an activity of the intellect. Archaeology tells us that the first people group to invent writing were Africans of Ethiopian and Egyptian descent. Though they did not invent the alphabet, which the word in itself has connotations for the first alphabet of the Hebrew letters, which is Aleph and Bet, they invented what we call hieroglyphics. These are enigmatic or incomprehensible symbols of writing. Later on, as words were written, they then were written in different languages. In writing words down, one can hide codes, enigmas, models, formulas, methods, etc. When God wanted to reveal His will to Israel, He wrote it down in 10 commandments. When He wanted to warn the Babylonian king, He wrote down the words Mene Mene Tekel Upharasim, which were coded words that were eschatologically and prophetically announcing the end of a reign and the beginning of another. In this book, The Call of God, Pastor K, as he is famously known, is revealing the mind of God as God has revealed it to him. Because bear in mind, words carry revelation. But sometimes when words are only spoken and not written, they can only fizzle out in the atmosphere. But when words are written, even revelation can be preserved. So in today's talk, I want to talk about a branded author. What is branding? Maybe you're asking yourself a question, say, branding. Branding is a systematic, intentional, and well thought out process of developing a way of getting a product, business, or individual noticeable, identifiable, selected, and preferred above others. Now, a branded author is therefore any author who over time has invested himself or herself in activities that gets his or her book to be noticeable, identifiable, selected, and preferred. What is this definition saying? The definition is actually saying there are certain things that Pastor K had to do to make sure that his book is noticeable above others, is identifiable, is selectable, and also preferred. Of course, today we are launching the book. It is the only book in the house. As a matter of fact, if I came in the house and I found another book at that table, I would have requested that book to be removed, because today it is about this book. Why? It is because we want to make sure that it is the only one that is preferred in the house. It is the only one that is selectable. It is the only one that is identifiable, because that's what being a branded author is all about. I remember one time there are ladies that used to have some kind of a stokvel with my mother. So these ladies, they decided to go overseas to attend a TD Jakes event. Now, because they are also preachers, what they decided to do, they decided to take their own CDs and DVDs to the event. And when they got there, during the event, the break, they were starting to sell what they had brought from South Africa. And some of the ushers, they realized that no, something wrong is happening here. And they approached them and said, what is it that you're selling at this event? Anybody who is selling at this event should be a guest speaker at this event. And there have been allocated space there. If you are not the guest speaker at this event, you are not allowed to sell. There is the business side of things that we dare not take for granted. So we are not going to sell in this place. Why? It is because if a brand is going to be seen, then it has to be exclusive and must be treated that way. So branding is an intentional act. We have to be intentional when we brand our books. It is a science that involves psychology, emotional connection, technology, and sometimes PR gimmicks, such as controversy, scandal, and hype, to get the brand edged in the mind of the customer or the client. So now, yes, we are launching the book today, but there are certain things that are going to happen on a daily basis until somebody says, no, but there is something about this book. I need to get this book. There are those who will see the book and buy it immediately, but there are those who will see the book and go back home and say, no, I saw something, it looks nice. They will see it the following day. Oh, it's still here. That's it. They will see it the other day and say, no man, let me try to Google this one. And then they get to see what's written at the back of the book. Then probably after a week or two, they then make a decision. But the reason that makes them to make a decision is because on a daily basis, there were messages that were coming to them, edging in their minds to say, there is something about this book that I need to get. Why? Because branding is a psychology. Branding is emotional connection. People want to connect to a product. People want to connect to a book. Moreover, people want to connect to the author of the book. Because sometimes you can write a book, but you as the author be disconnected to the readers. And people want to be connected to the readers. Now, there are 5 things that I'm going to say about being a branded author. Then I'm going to sit down. Number 1, you need to ask yourself, what is my message? If you are here and you're saying one day, I want to write a book, ask yourself this question. After you've written that book, or while you're still thinking of writing that book, ask yourself this question. What is my message? Every author must have a message. A book must bring a particular message. The message of the author actually narrows down the focus of the author. You know, I used to think, while I was doing my undergraduate, I used to think that people who are doing PhDs, cool, until I registered for a PhD. Then I realized that actually you know this. Because at PhD level, you are taught how to narrow your focus so that you are not all over, but you can just focus on this one thing. So you spend almost 5 years working on this one thing. When you graduate with that big mpura, and people say, "Ooh, usebenzi on that one thing." When people call you a professor, it is because you are a professor of that one thing.
Amen.
So what happens is that when you are blending yourself, you are narrowing your focus so that you can be known for that one thing. But the more you are known for that one thing, you are good at that one thing. And you get paid so much money for that one thing. Because there's nobody who can do that one thing the way you can do it. That one thing. So now you need to have that message. So your book needs to bring out a particular message. God instructed Prophet Habakkuk, and he said to him, gave him a message and said, write the vision down and make it great on the tablets of stone. In Habakkuk chapter 2. He instructed Ezekiel to document the date of the capture of Jerusalem in Ezekiel 24 verse 2. God instructed the aging and the blind apostle in the island of Patmos in Revelations 1 verse 1 to write down what he sees and send it to the seven churches of Asia. Because there is something about writing down the message. So a message must be written. When you are a branded author, you need to have a message that is compelling, a message that is impactful, a message that changes the lives of people. But now there is a difference between speaking the message and writing the message. That is why the spoken language and the written language are very different. Very different. Hence, sometimes when I would read a book that is written like somebody is speaking, I sometimes find myself not connecting because it's like I'm having a conversation with the author, and yet there is a particular way of saying things as you write them as different from saying things as you say them. But the message must be written. Number 2, you must ask yourself, who is my reader? Number 1, you must understand what is my message. Number 2, who is my reader? In other words, who is my audience? Because we have written the book for people to read. Now, you did, Pastor K didn't write a book so that the book can be on the shelf. He has written the book so that the book can be written, can be read. And those who read the book, buy the book. Yeah, when Pastor Ron is a pastor. Pastor Ron Henzuela, even if you borrow the book, buy the book. Yeah. No. Buy the book. Because when you buy the book, after you've read it, you can read it again and read it again and start formulating notes, and you can start teaching from the book yourself. Make it yours. So you ask yourself, who is my reader? The hardest thing for any author is finding the reader. It may be easy to know who our readers are and where to find them, but it is more difficult to actually go find them. Because your readers are the ones who will decide if they want to be a reader. As a matter of fact, there is something that happens with pastors who write books. After we've written and published the book, we have a tendency to think just because I am known, I preach everywhere, I speak to thousands of people, those people automatically will convert to become readers. They are your listeners, they are your hearers, they are not your readers. You still have to work hard to convert them to become your readers. Because they have a relationship with you as your listeners. But they don't have a relationship with you as your readers. They enjoy you on stage. But when it comes to reading, they don't even think about you. Because they don't have your picture as a writer. So you have a job to make sure that you convert listeners to readers. Not only any readers, but your readers. So we need to study who our readers are. In other words, we need to study the market. We need to study the audience. And thank God I'm talking to somebody who understands marketing. What is it that makes them tick? You know, we need to know how to find, you know, is the message that I'm bringing to my readers in line with who they are and what speaks to them. When people go into a bookshop to buy a book, some of them don't have a clue what book they want to buy. But you can be rest assured they know what type of books resonate with who they are. Amen. And the areas they want to develop. So you come into a bookshop, you know very well that you know what, I haven't bought a book in a long time. I need to buy myself some books that will keep me up during this festive season so that I'm not all over the place. I can just have books. I may not know the authors that I want to read, but I know exactly what speaks to my heart and my spirit and my mind. So I go into the bookshop and I go into the section. For example, when I go into the bookshop, I go into business sections. I go into politics sections. I go into history sections. Because those are the things that speaks to me. Somebody will go into a bookshop and go into the relationship section. Somebody will go into the bookshop and go into the kids section because the books that resonate with them are in those sections. So it's very much important for you to understand who then my reader is. So don't be alarmed when people sometimes don't buy the books as you expect them to buy them. Probably it could be that we haven't taken time yet to study who the reader should be and pursue. I mean, when you saw Sibusiso, you just knew, this is the one. Yeah. And you pursue. You pursue. Yeah. Until they appear to you. I don't know. We should do the pursuit. Yeah. What's a pursuit? Yeah. Oh, boss. So you need to know who the reader is. Because our readers are ashamed. They're ashamed. That's not Sibusiso. So you see to ashamed. Yeah. Ashamed in Jinto. Ashamed are readers. Because you need to convince them that the staff was paid is the staff. Because this book, it's not going to make it only into bookshelves of bookstores. It needs to make it into academic libraries. It needs to make it into national libraries, libraries of schools, and all those things. It needs to make it into the library in Parliament. It needs to make it into the National Library in Pretoria. You know, so if it's going to make it into those spaces, it therefore needs to be able to say, I understand where my reader is. Number 3, you need to ask yourself, what is my writing style? Because every author has a style of writing. Each person who writes has a particular style. One can be a storyteller, a historical narrator, a scientist, an academic, a creative writer, whatever it is. Your style is important, but your style speaks to a particular reader. Because there are people who cannot handle what I write because of the language that I use and the tone of the language. But there are people who want to read your style because it resonates with them, even intellectually, they can connect. Come on now! So what is the style of writing that I want to use in writing? So it's important to understand your style. In most cases, your style of writing will always coincide with how you communicate. It's never disconnected to how you communicate, how you see things, how you view life, how you work out issues of life. You know, I was just telling one guy Last year is called Panity. You know, every time when I read the Bible, when I read the Bible, I see business principles. But isn't it amazing that when somebody else reads the Bible, they see principles of relationship. Somebody sees principles of counseling. I always see principles of business. Even before I attempted to study anything on business, I was already a business consultant because the Bible was my text to help business people on how to build business. It resonated with what is already in me. So what is already in you comes across even in your writings. You know, in as much as you say it differently in writing than you say it differently on pulpit, but it's the same thing because it's already in you. So your style of writing will always resonate with how you communicate. Some are personally deep with their ideas, but others are just simple and user-friendly. So you need to determine what your style of writing is, so you may know how to position yourself with your customers. Number 4, what are my platforms? Branding needs a platform to thrive. We are now in the 4th industrial revolution. As a matter of fact, we are in the 5th, but just that the 5th is not yet promoted. But if you study the trends, you realize we are in the 5th industrial revolution. So it matters how and where you position yourself as an author. There are 5 dimensions to the 4th industrial revolution, which are applicable to branding. Number 1, digitization. Everything now is digitized. You know, they talk about the Internet of Things, where everything is connected to the internet. There is coming a time lapho uzodinga data for everything. I mean, now we have smart TVs, we now have smart fridges, smart cars. Everything is just being digitized. Then there is also democratization. You know, democratization of the 4IR. In other words, things like your Uber, you know, they've democratized how to transport people. Things like your Airbnb, they've democratized how hospitality and accommodation must be. Democratization. How are you going to democratize the reading of the material? Then there's called demonetization, okay? I know I'm in a ministry that focuses also on deliverance. I'm not talking about demons. Demonetization is the scrapping of money as we know it. Where things like your Bitcoin, these other coins, are going to replace money as we know it. Those are the dynamics or the dimensions of the 4IR. Number 4, dematerialization. This one is very much important, especially for those who want to write books, because there is coming a time where books will not be printed anymore. There is coming a time where the printing industry is going to have to rethink how it does things, because certain things will not be printed anymore. Why? Because dematerialization is coming into it. Then number 5, there is disruption. There is disruption. The Bible tells us that we must be creative. But after being creative, then came innovation, where you make that which has been created to be better and to function better. But there is now disruption, where speed is the matter, is the issue. So those are the 5 dimensions, the 4IR, and they are very much important if you are going to become a branded author. So using social media and digital platforms for branding has now become a norm. It's something that we cannot run away from. Every day we talk about social media and how it must be used. But what is important is how you use these social media platforms to get the message to the relevant and the correct audience. So you need to have an understanding of how each platform you use speaks. For example, you need to know if Facebook, what type of people use Facebook? Have you noticed most of the time with people who are CEOs and executive chairmen of boards, most of them, even though they do have a Facebook profile, but they are hardly on Facebook because they don't have time to be on Facebook. But you can find them on LinkedIn because LinkedIn creates revenue for them. It opens paths for business to come in because that's where business people are. Then you've got your fashionistas and slave queens on Instagram. So whatever you are selling, if it is to be sold to those people, we must find you on Instagram because that's where they are. Twitter. So if anything you are selling has to do with Nonkosi, must it turn Twitter. So it's very much important how we are going to use the platform is social media. And lastly, it's a question that says, am I in business or am I a charity? Ukuthi njengoba umfundisi release this book, it is a product. The product here. It's a product. Product ethathe isikhathi. He conceptualized it, he wrote it, he published it. He used the resource of time, sometimes away from his wife and the kids, writing the book. Sometimes away from the church, writing the book. But moreover, he spent money to make sure the book comes out. If you figure when you say, I'm finishing Paletto. Idolo lizoze libe nama-scratches. Spalana nawe. So the book must be bought. If you don't have money, mtshele mfundisi okwamanje anginamali, ngizobuya next week ngizothenga incwadi. Angeke uzoyithenga ngesikoloto, angeke uzoyithola nge-discount. Ngoba la uyiprinte khona mfundisi, I'm sure bakunika nge-discount. Am I a business or am I a charity? If we are going to progress ngezinto uNkulunkulu asiphezulu, we can't be charity. So in most cases, in English, who are writers, we've got good stuff, but as progress, because we don't see it as a business. That's like a launch business today. Launch business, the book is a business. Because out of this book, there's also Puma, a devotional out of this book. Out of this book, Puma, a book of codes and nuggets. Out of this book, Puma, a manual of a training program. Out of this book, Puma, an ebook, so that somebody in the States who cannot get the hard copy can be able to buy it as an ebook online. Out of this book, Puma, an audio book, so that some of us who don't like reading, who don't enjoy reading, but who enjoy listening can listen. So, as launching what? It's launcher e-business for generations to come. Pastor K, congratulations.